Hey everyone, welcome to the show. We are live on Brofesser and Friends. Hey everyone, welcome to Brofesser and Friends. We're glad that you're here. There's a million places you could be, but you chose to be here. We just came on, so people are joining us a little bit at a time, but I want to introduce our guests that we have with us tonight. First of all, my good friend from way out east, about as far east as you can go up in the Appalachian Mountains. He just got back from digging some ginseng. Porker, how are you, brother?
Doing well. Good to see you guys.
Good deal. If you follow me on Instagram, you probably have seen pictures of he and I out there digging up some ramps and putting some lights on my FJ out there with some at the Autotronics out there in Summersville, West Virginia. Good friend of mine. I appreciate you being here. But we also have with us Steve Goodgame from K5ATA Goodgame Ham Radio. Steve, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. And I got to say, two people, that one guy who goes by Brofesser and the other one goes by Porker. So I figure we're bound to have a good time, but thank you for having me.
Oh, well, it's guaranteed that we're going to have a good time. And you know, I'm almost a little bit out of my realm here because the ham radio has allured me all these years, and I'm still down on the lowly GMRS. So I wanted you to come on here to encourage me to go ahead and get my license and do all that. But I wanted to learn more, and I know there's other people out there that want to learn more about it and see what the advantages are, and that's why I wanted to come on and have you on here. But I wanted Porker to come on here too because he's going on 21, 22 years ham radio operator.
Since 2000.
I almost remembered your call sign. It's WV8 something. I can't remember what it is. WV8.
Whiskey Victor 8 Tango.
There we go.
Almost remembering a call sign is like almost having toilet paper. It's not good for anything.
Well, you know, I've never been the smartest guy out there, but I'm out there. So that's just the way it is. Y'all are going to help me and educate me on a little bit about this. So, Steve, tell us a little bit about yourself and how Goodgame Ham Radio and Outdoors got its start.
All right. Well, my name's Steve Goodgame. My call sign is K5ATA. I guess I've been licensed since 94, late 93. I don't really remember. It was way back when you had to wait for 8 weeks for the government to send you a slip of paper. Been doing ham radio off and on for years, and you know, I lived in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, moved out here to Mississippi where I got 20 acres with my own pond, and it backs up to God knows how many acres I can hunt. And I was like, you know what? I've got all the room for antennas, so I got back into ham radio. Then my daughter started taking an interest in it, and you know, she was my little map buddy, and you can't see it, but right over there is the world map that she would kind of pin the places that I had. And I was like, you know, there's so much to do with this that is more than just radio. And I started kind of kicking around ideas, started getting some kids into it in schools. And then I said, you know, I can reach more people if I start doing this stuff on YouTube. Before, my channel was actually a beekeeping channel and stuff like that. And then I kind of took a hard left and turned it into a ham radio channel. And I've been going that route ever since. And now not only do I teach my kids, who I call my Padawans at school, who are completely funded through my YouTube channel. I get next to no budget from school for that. So, and then we have, I lost my train of thought because I got on the Padawans. Oh, so I had, sorry, I start talking about my kids and I just start going that way.
Yeah.
And, so now, I teach my kids radio, and now I also, through the American Radio Relay League, I teach teachers to teach kids ham radio. So there's a whole lot to the hobby, and it's a lot of fun, as Porker can tell you. So,
yeah. I'm sure Porker's been at it a long time. I love riding around with him and listening to everybody talk and him trying to reach the space station when it comes over. That's always pretty fun. So it's very interesting to me. I kind of got a little bit of a bug for it when I went out to FJ Summit. FJ Summit is a event that we have out in Ouray, Colorado, where a bunch of FJs and Toyota lovers get out there, and up on top of Imogene Pass is one of the repeater towers, and everybody takes a ride. All the ham radio operators take a ride up there, and it's the tallest. I think it's the highest pass, the drivable pass in Colorado, and so it's one of those things where you can go up there and talk for a long stinking ways.
Well, so, yeah. I mean, how many feet is that? How many in elevation?
14,000 something.
So you essentially have a 14,000 foot antenna, which is pretty freaking awesome. So
it's hard to beat that.
Yeah.
My little 4,600 feet tallest mountain here in West Virginia don't hold a candle to that.
Yeah, so it's way on up there. So that's kind of a big deal for all of them, when they go up there and they're able to get up there and do that, because that's just a really cool thing. But I want you to, a lot of times for me, when ham radio operators get together, and y'all were doing this when y'all came on, y'all started throwing out a bunch of numbers and letters, and it was all just Chinese gibberish to me. I didn't know what you were talking about. So when y'all get together, you talk about a bunch of stuff that us lay people can't understand. So tell us a little bit about ham radio. Give us like an intro to us, for us, what it is and why it is beneficial to people who are in the outdoors.
Okay, so ham radio, or amateur radio, it's a licensed radio service, just like GMRS is a licensed radio service. The difference is you actually have to take and pass a test to get your ham radio license. Right now, it's still free to do that, although there is a $35 fee that as soon as the FCC gets their ducks in a row, they're going to start kicking at us. But basically, with amateur radio, you can do essentially what you're doing on GMRS, which is taking, two handheld radios and get a mile or two apart, which, depending on, their line of sight kind of thing. So you can talk just like a walkie-talkie for a couple miles. If you're lucky, you get several. But we also have a bunch of repeaters. And what a repeater is like you were talking about at the top of that mountain, it's 14,000 feet or whatever it is. So that repeater is on top of, I assume, a tower or something up there. So it's 14,000 plus whatever. And I don't have a graphic to show you, but it's basically, if you picture that antenna up here, and let me get in my camera here, and if Porker's here and Brofesser's here, and this is the top of a mountain, what you can do with ham radio that is a lot more difficult to do with GMRS is you can actually, Porker can hit that repeater. And then what that does is it literally just repeats that transmission, but it's not delayed really. It's pretty much simultaneously. And then it goes down and you can hear him on the other side of the mountain. So it takes away a lot of the line of sight stuff through the use of repeaters. We also have, like those numbers we were tossing around. We were talking about, we're driving down the interstate talking on 5.2. There are certain designated frequencies that people kind of hang out on and listen. So you don't necessarily have to be able to hit a repeater to find people to talk to. And that's kind of with your entry level license. And I'll go ahead and tell you now, I'm not one of these guys who's like, a radio snob or anything. I mean, we were kind of talking about CB earlier and how it's going by the wayside. And actually, they're making some changes to CB right now.
Big ones.
And, pretty much if it's radio, I'm cool with it. So, it's all kind of the same thing. And to me, I just like ham radio because of the network of people that I already know and some of the things that I know it's capable of. I've got a buddy, Brad, who's an overlander who, I don't know if Porker knows Brad or not. But
Brad's actually the one that asked me to contact you when we were out in Kansas camping together. So he said, man, you got to contact this guy. He's super cool. And I took him at his word. So I have high expectations. I just want you to know.
So I better get more coffee then. But, because I just drained that one. So, and my wife's not watching, so I can tell you that she can't make a cup of coffee. So it's not like I can call one in.
Yeah. Shots fired.
It's rough.
I had a rough morning this morning. My coffee was horrible. I got home and I asked my wife, I said, what in the world did you do to my coffee? She said, I got this new, it's some kind of a fruity blend. And I said, no, we don't do that.
We don't do fruity.
Don't put that in my cup ever again. So
yeah,
that's worse than using a
we had a fight
towel on a cast iron pan, ain't it?
Yeah.
So quick little side thing on the coffee. Are you a black coffee kind of guy?
Yes, sir. Black is the only.
What about you, Porker?
Cream.
Well, I won't hold it. I won't hold it against you too much. So.
He's almost perfect.
I will drink it black, but I do like some cream in it.
But anyway, like I was saying, that's kind of the entry level license, and then you can go up from there. And that's what Brad, when he first got into it, he's like, I don't know if you've seen the inside of Brad's truck or not, but he's got every flavor of radio in that thing that you could imagine. Mm-hmm. And so then he went and he got his general license. And when he got that general license, what that did is that opened up HF communications for him, where he's no longer limited by line of sight. He can now take advantage of, skipping the old style CB skip like we used to do. He can do it with 100 watts now with his, or more if he has an amplifier, but he doesn't. But he can now talk, he can go overlanding. He can talk on that radio to all of his buddies that are out there using line of sight. And then when he sets up camp, he throws that mast up that he's got and hangs a wire off of it, and he can talk around the world, just kicking back by the campfire. So there are a lot worse things you can spend an evening by a fire doing. I mean, you're kicking back by a fire, stars over you, and you're talking to some cat, and who knows where, over in Europe, somewhere, Australia.
Can't beat it.
It's a great time, and it's a great network of people.
That's just interesting to me, and I'm kind of like you. Anything that has to do with communications, I'm interested in it, and so it's always been something that I've had an interest, and I'm like Brad. I've got a CB. GMRS, and I've got a ham radio in there. We went ahead and installed it, so when I get my license, we won't have to tear everything back apart and put it in there. I don't use it because I know I'm not supposed to use it, but it's there. So when I get my license, we won't have to redo everything. And
so we just need to fix that license thing. So out of curiosity, what radio is it that you put in the truck?
I've got the new Midland that came out this year or last year. The small mobile one. That
little 25 water dual bands. Okay.
That's it.
Yeah, he knows. He installed it.
So in fact, it goes under several different brands.
Several brands. I mean, you can use it, on GMRS, and you just couldn't use it in the ham band.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of technical, legal things that nobody really enforces, kind of thing. That
It's like my 5100 in the Mars Cat mod.
Yeah, and I've got a 5100 in the truck, and
big Icon fan.
Yeah, that's I'm a huge Icon fan, and that's a manufacturer of ham radio, because I don't want to throw out the lingo that you're like, I don't know what you're talking about, Willis.
Y'all lost me. Reel me back.
So, and since we're there, I'm going to go ahead and there are a lot of different brands that you can buy radios from, as you know, for any flavor of radio service. The advantage to the ICOM radio, that 5100, is I can take on this little SD card and I can load every single repeater, or pretty much every repeater in the United States, onto this SD card, and I can plug it into that radio, and it's got a built-in GPS receiver in it. And so as I'm cruising around, I can have it set so that it is automatically scanning all of the repeaters that are within, I think it's about 50 or so miles.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
it's constantly scanning. And so as I'm moving, it's changing where it's scanning for me. I mean, I talked to who knows how many people cruising up to Connecticut 2 weeks, whenever it was I was up there. I haven't slept much since then. So, but it's been a couple weeks, and I just left that thing scanning the whole time, and it's great. So, you know, it's one of those, no matter where you go, you can always find someone to talk to if you get the right radio. Other radios you do have to manually program, which it's not that bad depending on the radio,
No.
but you still have to plan ahead.
Yeah.
You know, for where you're going. Whereas this, I just stick it in there and I'm good to go.
Yeah, that is cool. That is cool. Well, you know, y'all you've already got my brain all jumbled up thinking about all these letters and numbers and lingo that you got. We might need to stop, catch our breath, refill our coffee mugs, and do whatever. So we're going to pause right here for station identification. We'll be back in about a minute.
Hey guys, it's Porker from Autotronics.
Adam, it's Step 22 gear.
Jordan from NSM Overland.
Hi, I'm Jeremiah from Overland Pioneers.
Frankie from Overland Rentals.
Jessica and Jorge, Rubric Wonder.
Hi, this is Jeff from Re-Rover.
Hi, I'm Jeff from Re-Rover, and we're here with Brofesser.
I believe I can fly.
I'm Rhino from Rhino Belt Rod and Custom. I'm Aaron with Switchback Outdoor Safety.
And you're watching Brofesser and Friends.
Brofesser and Friends. Brofesser.
Brofesser and Friends.
Brofesser. Brofesser.
Brofesser.
Brofesser.
Brofesser and Friends.
Brofesser and Friends.
And Friends.
Enjoy.
So I had a little free time this afternoon, so I remade a little bit of this new things. Sorry, Mason, if you're out there. I had Mason doing I Believe I Can Fly. He's one of my good friends, and I love making him look like an idiot. Although he does a good job of it by himself, I help him out every now and then. But anyway, back to what we were talking about. Tell me, Steve, how you came up with now on your channel, on your Instagram, it's ham radio and outdoors. So tell me how you marry the two, how you put those two together.
So I pretty much like anything outside. You know, I fish a little bit, kayak a little bit, hunt a little bit. And so to me, I'd rather be outside than inside, unless it's like today where it's 98 degrees.
Oh my gosh.
At which point I'm like, you know what? Inside looks pretty stinking nice. And so my daughter's kind of the same way. And so there are several programs in ham radio, and one of them is called Parks on the Air. And what Parks on the Air is basically you take your radio kit and hang on, I can slide back. And that is an entire setup where I can throw that in the back of the truck. I've got much smaller ones, but that's the one I go to most of the time. Show up at a park, go throw a wire in a tree, and hang out in the woods and talk to people around the world. Now, what Parks on the Air is there are a lot of people out there that some of them just don't like to be outside. Some of them just can't be outside anymore. And so they like to try to collect, so to speak, all of these parks. And, you know, the more rare the park, then the more people that are trying to talk to you on the radio. Me personally, I just like the idea that it's outside, and you know, I can, like this last time I went out, took my camper out to the campground. We kayaked for a few hours, did some fishing, played radio, went back out, kayaked a little bit more. It's a good time. And y'all were talking about, I forget what you called it, but the FJ, whatever it was,
Summit, yeah.
That one. There's another program called Summits on the Air. Now, I don't get to do that in Mississippi because we're kind of flat.
Yeah.
But anywhere that you have mountains, you have summits, which is similar to parks on the air. It's just with really tall antennas because you're on top of mountains. And there are a bunch of people that like to collect that stuff. So if you're one of those folks, a lot of those summits you can drive up, or in your case, y'all are capable of driving up to more things than I am because I've seen some of your trucks. But you can drive part way and hike up the rest of it. So you're fit into hiking and stuff like that. It's a great program for you. And you can do the same thing, hang out outside. I've got a good friend of mine. His name's Adam. His call sign is K6ARK, and that's what he does. His entire YouTube channel pretty much is climbing mountains and playing radio. And he builds radios in things about that big.
Wow.
And that's his entire radio. He'll throw a wire in a tree and talk using Morse code in that case around the world with it. So there's so many different flavors, I guess, of radio that you can play with.
That's interesting. Well, Porker, you have recently gotten into the adventure side, the overlanding side, with the purchase of your new Bronco. Tell us about how you have incorporated your ham radio into your travels. I know you keep one in your shop. You've always got one in your vehicle, but what is the main thing that you could use it for when you're traveling out?
Hams, there's millions of hams in the world. And, like we were talking before the show started there, we're all the time talking on the simplex frequencies. And, it's around here, it's pretty easy to catch anybody any given day on the simplex. If you get out there out of cell phone service, which is infamous here in the mountains, I've got the radio as an emergency communique to try to get me some help if needed. I don't have an inReach yet or anything like that. And sometimes I wonder if it even work here in West Virginia, as much cover as we have. But the radio seems to be my peace of mind when we're out of cellular service. There's always going to be a ham radio tower within reach usually, or a simplex frequency that I might be able to seek some help on.
That's good information. I've always, as soon as I discovered the Garmin inReach, my wife told me that we would never leave home without it. So we've always got that with us, but it's mainly a emergency contact, or if you get in trouble, it will send you help or whatever. But as long as you have a clear view of the sky, you're able to communicate, which I love. But it seems like the ham radio works pretty much the same way, except you just you can contact anybody on the inReach through a cell phone, where the ham radio would contact through a radio or something like that, the way I understand it.
Yep. And, there are, like I said, there are several different frequency options to do that. I mean, like Porker was saying, you can almost always find a repeater unless you're just in the middle of the desert somewhere. And then simplex frequencies, that's like we were talking earlier, that 146.52. There are a lot of people that just leave one side of their radio, constantly listening to that frequency. So, if you are injured or you need help or something like that, there's usually someone you can get a hold of using ham radio to do that.
Well, I know we talk about ham radios all the time for how far you can reach with them and how many people you can talk to around the world or anything. But would it be beneficial to have in your vehicle to go on a trail ride? If there's 7, 8, 9, 10 of you, would it be beneficial to have that as the main communication device between rigs?
Well, let me ask you this. How far separated do you guys tend to get when you're...
Sometimes it's pretty close. We're probably 20 to 50 feet apart.
Well, no, I mean, what's the other extreme? How far apart? Because
we don't usually on trail rides, if we have 5, 6 rigs, which we try to keep it under 10 to try to, minimize the amount of damage that we're doing on the trails. If we have 5 or 6 rigs out there that are going down a trail, probably between the first and the last rig, you're not talking a couple 100 yards.
And so do you have like a home base somewhere where you're you camp. I know I've seen pictures of Brad where he's set up and there's like a little home base, and then they trail right out of there. So I assume there are some people at the home base that, people that aren't necessarily on the trail ride.
Right.
So,
yeah, that happened a few years ago when we went to FJ Summit. One of my older friends, we got there before anybody else, and I took him up California Pass, and he realized very quickly that shelf roads were not for him. We were standing on top of California Pass, and me and his wife went up and looked at the beautiful scenery, and I looked back down, and he was standing beside his truck, and I walked back down there, and he said, "Get me off this mountain." He said, I can't deal with this. So as soon as we got down from there, he said, "I'm going to be camp cook all week." So he stayed at the base all week, and we had decent communications with him. I was very shocked with the 40-watt GMRS. We were able to talk probably 10, 11 miles through the mountains. But we needed something with a little bit further reach in order to be able to communicate with him. And so this is where I see this coming in.
That's exactly where I'm going. So and I keep using Brad as an example just because I kind of helped Brad set up some of his radios and pick out some of his stuff. And so what Brad has in his truck, it's an ICOM 2730A radio. And what that radio can do is it can do what's called crossband repeat. So wherever Brad goes, he can be basically a mobile repeater. We talked about that repeater up on top of the 14,000-foot mountain. Yeah. Well, this one's just on top of Brad's little Toyota. But it's still, let's say you're 20 miles from base camp, and then you've got somebody else 20 other miles past you. Basically, they can talk through Brad's radio, and it repeats it onto a separate frequency so that you can never lose communications for that much farther of a distance. So, he's able to set up, or, he can even leave his truck. Not that Brad would leave his truck. I know him. But, he could leave his truck somewhere with, all of the solar and batteries he's got in there. That thing can run continuously and constantly have that crossband repeater thing. So you could have a repeater pretty much anywhere that you went for a trail ride. So even if, there are mountains that are separating and stuff like that, you could set up that crossband repeater on a high point and throw it on a battery with a little solar charger, and you can talk using that thing and never lose comms between your base station or any of your guys that are out trail riding.
That's interesting. That's really cool, and that would be especially helpful out there because cell phones don't work out there. For some reason, parts of Colorado have not discovered cellular telephones yet, or cell towers, or have put them anywhere where you can get any cell service. So that's definitely something that would be handy when you go to places where you have no cell phone coverage or anything like that, because it made it very challenging for us to be able to communicate with each other when we were separated. And so when people went to the event, or when somebody was staying back at camp, and a couple of us went on the trail rides, because I'm in Arkansas, and so we don't get to go to the mountains very often. So while we're there, we got to take advantage of it, and while we're there. So I wanted to see as much and do as much as we possibly could while I was there. But being able to communicate with everybody, let everybody know where we're at, what we're doing, where to meet up, dinner, whatever. This would be the perfect way to be able to do that.
Yeah. And go ahead.
GMRS there's nothing wrong with it. It just has its limitations where, ham radio, has much more to offer. If you're not into 4 season of overlanding and you've got some downtime, you've always got the ham radio you could set up in your house or in your shack or what have you, and talk all over the world in your spare time. You can't do that on GMRS, but, with the ham, you have local repeaters in my area. There's a little over 200 in the state of West Virginia. So, it's easy to get on 2 or 3 counties away and sit and rag chew with somebody all night long. You're just not going to have that with GMRS. In my opinion, it's limited to out on the trail. I think there's one GMRS repeater in the state of West Virginia. So for me to go and spend gobs of money on a GMRS setup just don't make sense to me. Whenever I can do what I need to do with ham radio that I've already got established in many different forms of radios.
And you know, we mentioned earlier that you have to take a test to get your ham radio license. I'm just going to tell you, it is not a difficult test.
Not at all.
I've had kids as young as fourth graders pass this test, and you know that's what I do at school. I teach these kids, and I mean the last 2 years I've had 50 of them get their ham radio license. So it's not that tough of a test. You can devote a good weekend, maybe a week of studying, and you can get that first ham radio license, and then you can do all of those repeaters and stuff like that, and then take the time to learn about the hobby a little bit more. You get a little bit of taste of some of the HF stuff, especially now that Sun Cycle 24, Solar Cycle 25 is starting to kick up. And what that does for us is that helps propagation with how far you can talk on HF.
I'm so excited.
Yeah,
So this has come up a few times, and I want everybody to know what you're talking about. Tell us about getting into the schools and what you've done to establish teaching kids and the next generation the ham radio and the reason for it.
So what I do is I teach middle school computer science, and I'm fortunate in that my administration several years ago, he was like, hey, I guess about 3 years ago, he's like, you've got this extra class that I teach one group of kids that I get in 6th grade, and then I get them back again in 8th grade. And so that was kind of our little guinea pig group of kids. And he said, you can teach them anything you want to teach them as long as it has something to do with technology. And I was like, you cool with ham radio? And he's like, absolutely. Whatever you want to do, go for it.
That's awesome.
And
that is awesome.
Yeah. So I teach them. I just took most of this stuff to school that was sitting there because school starts next week. But I just took most of these radios and stuff to school, but hang on, let me grab this. But part of what I do is we have several copies of this lying around, which is just one of the license manuals. This is the one from the American Radio Relay League. It's a great resource if you want to learn about ham radio. It's, I don't know, $30 or something like that. But you can get a lot of this information for free at the same time on the internet. So
someone has an app there that I downloaded him a while back, and he's just not utilizing it.
Yeah, and there are apps that basically you can memorize the test. And to be honest with you, a good percentage of my kids, that's what they do. They memorize the test, because I'll be the first one to tell you most of the stuff that you learn after you start using it.
Yeah.
It's no different. Yeah, I imagine it's the same thing as overlanding. Yeah, you can read all the books, you can watch all the YouTubes, but until the first time you're out there and something gets hairy or something's tough to get through or something like that, that's when you start to learn those lessons from the other guys that are out there.
Yeah. To me, it's like a driver's test. I mean, you can study all day a book, but until you actually drive a car, none of that stuff on that test makes any sense whatsoever. And so it's kind of the same thing to me. It's learning it on the app or through a book. It's just words on a page. But until you actually start using it, that's when it starts making sense, and it actually becomes more interesting then.
Yeah, much more.
So what you need to do is go ahead and utilize that app and just cram for a weekend. Yeah, and get tested, because nowadays you can even test online. You don't even have to leave your house to take this test. Mm-hmm. So, I've got, in fact, all of my kids, my Padawans at school, that's what they do. We started out testing in person, and then we got, all that snow and stuff earlier this year. And then, ironically, my kids are now testing through the Greater Los Angeles Amateur Radio Group here in Mississippi.
Nice. Wow.
Because the guys over there emailed me when, I was talking about it on my YouTube stream, and I was like, yeah, it kind of sucks where we lost our testing because of the snow and this and that. And he just reached out to me. He's like, hey, we can do this, and for kids, we'll do it for free. Awesome. And so, so they tested all of my kids for free. Now, if I've got a kid who's ready, I just text the guy, say, hey, we're ready for one. And we set it up and we run a testing session for them.
That's cool.
And one of them is already upgraded to extra, which is the third level, that highest level of ham radio operator that you can get. So, there's definitely something to be said for
Right. Well, and we get it's kind of similar to the whole idea of overlanding, because people ask us all the time, what kind of truck do I need? What kind of gear do I need? And I tell them, man, whatever you've got, just get out there and go and explore. If you've got an old crappy tent and a crappy car, just get out there and explore. And the more you do it, you'll find out what you need, and then you can, upgrade and buy a few things. But you don't want to wait around and, put it off like I've done, taking the test and missing out on all this time where you could have spent doing this. You just need to jump in there, take the test, because tests freak me out. I'll just be honest with you. Tests freak me out because I have a learning disability from having so many concussions, and I can't remember anything. And so tests freak me out. And so last year was a tough year because none of the organizations, like we have a ham organization in my city that gets together once a month, and they meet, they have dinner, and they talk, and they do the test there. But last year they weren't able to do that. And so if you wanted to take a ham operator's test, you had to schedule it, and you had to get in touch with somebody, and it was just a pain in the butt. But then I heard about the online test. And so, there's ways out there. You just have to take advantage of them and just go ahead and do it and quit putting it off.
Yep. And there's definitely an advantage to getting it done sooner rather than later, because like I said, the FCC is going to start charging that $35 fee. It's already been they just hadn't, it's the government. So, nothing's going to work terribly efficiently. So they're not done setting it up yet. But as soon as they get that set up, trust me, they're going to start taking that $35. So if it's something you're kicking around, download the app, cram for it, and get that first test out of the way. Save yourself that $35. I think the online testing folks, what do they charge for old folks? $10, I think.
$10.
I mean, $10 is nothing. I paid back in '94. I think I paid something like $16 or something like that to take my test in person. And, you get to take it at home with your cup of coffee, and you can take it in your underwear if you want. It doesn't really matter.
That's kind of the way I am now.
75 or 80 for my GMRS license just not too long ago. So.
So
and it's going to come down as well whenever they get everything lined out.
Yeah, that's what I was going to tell y'all. So anybody in your group, like I said, pretty much if it's radio, I'm cool with it. And so if somebody wants to stick with GMRS but they don't have that license yet, wait. Because you'll save.
Don't do it yet. No, wait.
Because that's the other part of the equation is the GMRS license is coming down to $35, whereas the ham radio license is coming up to $35, and it's going to be a blanket, kind of $35 charge for everybody,
just to be able to communicate with each other,
just to be able to use the airwaves that are out there anyway. So. But, the government got to get their money. So
that's right. They're going to get it somehow. And send it off to another country. We won't get into that. But anyway, well, we've been talking a little bit. I think we're going to take another little break here, and we're going to get off into some safety issues and how we can use the ham radio for some safety stuff. But we're going to do our safety brief, and we call it that because it's about safety and it's brief. Brought to you by Switchback Outdoor Safety.
Hey, this is Aaron with Switchback Outdoor Safety, and today we're going to talk about some items you should have while you're out traveling, camping, or hiking, biking. The first thing we think we ought to have is always a trauma kit. We have a trauma kit that is principally based. It sits on your chest. We have large packs, small packs. But in the trauma kit, you're going to end up with a tourniquet, an Elias bandage, which is a hemostatic bandage, an occlusive dressing, a chest seal, nasopharyngeal airway, an emergency rescue blanket, and trauma shears, nitrile gloves. Check back next week, and we're going to talk about each of these items so that you know what they do and how to use them.
Now, the stuff that Aaron talks about in that safety kit is stuff that we need to have, but hope we never use. The tourniquet, the nasal pharyngeal airway, the safety blanket, all that stuff. But as far as using the ham radio for safety, is there a way that you can communicate to people out there in case you have an accident or in case you have trauma where my wife could jump on there and use it? How would that work?
Okay, so yeah, like we talked about earlier, there are generally people, or you're close enough to a repeater, you can get into a repeater. Now, even let's just say you're incapacitated, you have your license, but your wife does not. She actually doesn't have to have a license to transmit in a life or death kind of emergency.
Okay.
So she could pick up your radio and be like, Brofesser just fell down this little cliff, and well, he's breathing, but that's all he's doing right now. So she can still use that to communicate. She can use any of those features. Now, that's not saying she would know how to use all of them,
right?
But yeah, you can definitely use ham radio for emergencies. People use it all over the country. They use it for skywarn spotting, weather spotting and stuff like that too.
Yeah.
Which is another way of trying to keep people safe, kind of spotting for the tornadoes before they, barrel down on you.
Mm-hmm.
So there are a lot of different ways just with that entry level ham radio license, that technician level license, that you can, get help or give help, because that's kind of the way it works. Is you want to constantly be on guard when somebody else needs it too. Nobody wants to be that guy or wants to hang out with that guy who just always asks and never gives.
Right.
So,
well, we have a lot of guys that post a lot. They go out by themselves. They get into a situation, they get stuck, or their vehicle has troubles or dies or something like that, and they have no way of contacting anybody. But this would be one of those ways where they could contact somebody out there that could hear them, that could get them some help.
Well, I can take it just a little bit further. I don't know about, where Steve's at there in Mississippi, but here in West Virginia, we still got a lot of the older repeaters on the air, and we have what we call auto
patch. I was going to go there.
Auto patch. It's on the repeaters. You can actually make a phone call. If you can't get anybody to talk to you on the radio itself, you can activate the auto patch and actually dial 911 or dial somebody else's number and talk to them like a phone conversation across the radio. So that we still have many of those active here in West Virginia, which is an added benefit for the ham radio operators here.
Yeah, and I've used it back in the day a lot of times. Back before anybody had a cell phone or could afford one anyway. Mm-hmm. That was one of those. I've come up on accidents and used it, and it's just like using a phone. Let's see if I can stretch this up there. This is the microphone on my ICOM 2300, and you just key it up, and most of them have like a code you have to type in first to open the auto patch, but then you just dial 911, and then it connects, and you just can relay your emergency that way.
That's incredible. Well, the features that these have, you're just mind blowing. It's amazing, all the different things that you can do with them, and people like me have no idea what they're getting into. And so it's makes it that more interesting to me, and makes me want to get out there and get going with it even more.
See, that's why you need to go to my YouTube channel and kind of watch some of the.
I've watched a few of them.
I say that there are a lot of us. We kind of have a group of us that, we regularly make videos on how to do everything with ham radio, and so it's on YouTube. If you're curious about it, you can find it. In fact, a friend of mine, Josh Nash, he runs it is the biggest ham radio YouTube channel out there, Ham Radio Crash Course. He just made a video that's about to get released about some of all the stuff that you can do, but it's actually going to be released through the American Radio Relay League. So, you'll see that. There's just so much to it. We haven't even touched. You can talk through satellites. You can
space shuttle.
Yeah, you can talk to astronauts on the space station. There's so much to the hobby. You don't even have to talk. If you're one of those people that you don't like talking, you'd rather type, you can do that too. You can plug your radio into your computer and do digital modes where it's using a computer, but it's using the airwaves instead, and you're talking around the world. And just like, I don't know how y'all feel about news, so I'll keep it kind of politically neutral. But news channels tend to spin things the way they want them to be.
Yeah, isn't that something? And
so, but with amateur radio, you can talk on the radio instead of talking, to somebody. Let's just say there's a crisis in Italy or something. Instead of hearing about it on the news, you can talk to somebody in Italy. That's about as unfiltered as you can get.
Yeah, from the horse's mouth. Yeah,
and you can do that with the entry level amateur radio license just by using, one of the digital voice modes. The DMR, that's a DMR radio, which is just one of the 3-ish flavors of digital voice, where it basically combines that with the internet. And so you can drive around, talk on your radio, it pipes it through the internet, and it pipes it out wherever you tell it to. Same thing with D-Star. It's another flavor of it. But there are several ways you can talk around the world and get it from the horse's mouth instead of from,
Yeah.
And it's a great way. The teacher in me always goes back to, well, what can you learn from that? Well, my kids can learn a world of stuff about culture and about people. And then, we look at maps and we look at where it is. We learn about geography. Nowadays, you can go to Google Maps and drop the person on the street, and you can kind of look around like you're there.
Yeah.
So there's so much to it that people can enjoy that they just don't know about.
Yeah.
I've never met a person that actually took the time and got their license and said, this is not for me. It always sparked them to go further, to do more, to be able to, I like chasing the DX, talking abroad, and I've always seen people want to go that direction. They want to go all the way to get the highest license available.
Yeah, as soon as that first time somebody talks to somebody and they come back with, you just worked a station in Belgium, they're like, well, what, where? That's it. That's, they're going for it. So,
yeah, I've sat in Porker's shop, and he showed me on his laptop how he's got his laptop hooked to his radio, and he told me about all the countries that he had logged, and to me that was interesting, being able to keep up with that and logging all these countries that you've talked to. That's super cool.
See, now Porker, you need to have him over and let him actually talk on the radio, because you can actually talk on the radio with him being your control operator.
Yeah,
we're getting together. Matter of fact, this weekend coming up, we're all meeting at a central location down there in Tennessee. Just 2
days. Today's Tuesday. We'll be there Thursday.
Oh, I thought you mean we was only going to be together for 2 days.
No, we'll be there in 2 days.
To cry. But I'm gonna get him on the radio. We're gonna hit some trails while we're down there in Tennessee, and I'm gonna get him on the radio.
So throw a wire in the tree and work the world. I mean, there's that'll do it. And if that doesn't get you licensed, I'm going to do the same thing to you that I do to my kids. And I say I do it, and it's not. I mentioned earlier that my Padawans are pretty much entirely funded through my YouTube channel, and what that means is people donate technically they donate it to me, because we're not allowed to donate it to the school because of things like that. So technically what they do is they donate radios and gear and stuff like that to me, and I in turn give that to kids. I don't check it out to them. I give it to them. As soon as a kid gets a call sign, I get, and most of them are just cheap little Baofeng. This is a Baofeng Wannabe by Redivis.
Get them on the radio.
I give them a radio. I show them how to use it. We step outside, and they make that first contact on a repeater, because there's one of these old guys that's always on the repeater around here. Hilton's there, and they're waiting for my kids to get on the repeater.
Awesome.
So as soon as you have your license, I'm sending you a Baofeng.
Oh wow!
So
this is my version of you got to be smarter than a 5th grader. So
that's it. So it's when you've got your license and it hits the database, I'm in the mail that day will be your radio, because that's what we do. That's
cool.
The only way to get people a lot of people get their license, especially with the prepper community and stuff like that. They get their license, but they never actually use it.
Yeah.
And so if you get your license and you don't actively start using it, you're never gonna go farther with it. So if I've got to give you a $35 radio to get your license and play radio, I will give you a $35 radio, and I'll put my sticker in the box too.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Oh, now Aaron Paris jumped on. We just had you on here, Aaron. I hope you saw yourself and saw how sexy you look. We all have a little beard envy on you there. So
see, that's his call sign he threw out there at the beginning of that. He's a hammy.
Yeah, Aaron's Aaron is he's a man of many hidden talents. He doesn't come out there very much, but super guy. He actually is up in I believe Kansas City area is where he's at. So, okay. But man, that's good information. That's really good information. And tell everybody what your YouTube channel is so they can go and find you. And
if you just look for Goodgame Ham Radio, or you can look for my call sign, which is K5ATA, which Brofesser posted it on Insta, Snapchat, a tweet, TikTok. Yep. And so it's out there. But if you look for K5ATA, you'll find me. I would definitely appreciate the sub because, it kind of helps everything keep moving. Yeah. Because that's how we fund my kids. So, yeah. And I'm also, I do some work for the American Radio Relay League, like I said earlier, teaching teachers how to teach ham radio. I'm not the only one that does that, but there are several of us I'm a teacher by trade and a teacher at heart. So I get people all the time that are constantly emailing me questions. My email is on my webpage somewhere. It's just goodgamehamradio@gmail.com. Email me your questions. I will help you jump through whatever hoops you need help jumping through. Appreciate that, Lester. Thank you. See that he subbed. So thank you very much. But I'm busy. I'll be the first to tell you I work about 80 plus hours a week, but I'll get your email at some point. So if you've got questions, throw it to me, and I'm more than happy to help you out.
That's awesome. How often do you do a YouTube video?
We live stream every Wednesday at 7:00. Lately, since I've started working 80 hours a week for the league, my normal videos have slowed down significantly just because I have to sleep at some point. But we're trying to get a handle on that again. I've been just crazy busy working through the summer. Well, I was a little disheartened today. I was sitting in my classroom, setting up my room with my wife, and she's a teacher as well. And she's like, I can't believe we're going back to school next week. And I thought it was another week still because I hadn't had a week off yet. And I was like, what do you mean? We still got another week. And she's like, no. I was like, oh. So, that's kind of the way it rolls, I guess.
We've got we start back the 9th. School starts the 16th. So we've got a couple more weeks just yet. And this little trip to the Smokies this week is going to be our last hoorah before we go back to work. I normally have the same schedule as a teacher, so getting off all summer is one of the perks to my job, and I use it. I've been all over this summer, all the way up to Michigan, out to West Virginia. I was going to go to Colorado last week, but we got shorthanded, and they called me in and had to go back to work. And so my trip out west this year got canceled. But, I really want to get out there, and the next time I go out there, I'm going to have this ham license, and I want to be one of the ones that get to go up on top of Imogene and make that trip. So I'm looking forward to that, and I'm just going to have to force myself to sit down and do it.
You just got to do it because it's I just made a 4,100 mile trip from Mississippi up to Connecticut, and that we actually went all the way to Maine just because if I'm that far up, I might as well go to Maine.
Might as well.
And came back down 4,100 miles, and I talked on the radio a good percentage of the way. So.
That's cool.
It's a great way to pass time. You'll meet some great folks. I mean,
keep you awake. I mean, it has many benefits.
Yeah. So, I mean, and everything down to, you roll into a town, you don't know where to eat. You can hit the repeater and say, hey, I mean, let's just be honest, we got to eat.
Yeah.
So you can roll into town and hit the repeater and ask where a good place to eat is, and then you're not stuck with McDonald's.
Yeah, well, the locals are the best people to ask when you want to go find a good place to eat in a place where you've never been. So, that's definitely one of the perks to it, for sure. Well, we've done about almost an hour, and I think we have covered a lot. I want to encourage everybody out there listening and those who will listen to go to Good Game Ham Radio on YouTube, and it's Good Game Ham Radio and Good Game Ham and Outdoors. Is that what it is on Instagram?
Yeah, good Game Ham Radio and Outdoors.
Yeah, on
or something like that.
Instagram.
You'll find me on there.
Yeah, there's not many good games out there, and so if you just put that in there, he'll come up. I promise.
Just look for the bald one, and that's me.
Well, we appreciate you coming on. So much good information, and like he said, I've got the email up there right now. So if you have any questions whatsoever, he is a teacher and he loves teaching people. How many kids have you put through your class now that have succeeded in getting their call sign?
Oh, I'm probably at about 70 something.
Wow.
But before the last 2 years, it was, a couple here, a couple there.
Yeah.
But once I got the freedom to kind of go full bore, I had a class period a day kind of thing. I cranked. They did the work. I just kind of guided them there. It's 52, I think, is the number in the last 2 years.
That's awesome.
So,
That's cool.
and I've got more coming up this year. I've already looked at my class rolls. I'm like, yep, gotcha.
I love it.
So
I love it. So if you have your ham radio in your vehicle and you're traveling through Mississippi, there's a good chance you're going to talk to a 12-year-old. It's a rare thing, but pretty cool thing at that.
Not as rare as it used to be. So that's what I'm after.
That's good. That's good.
Got to get that.
Love teaching the next generation. It's worth something. We got to get them off the video games, and we got to get them doing some of the old school stuff. And I just found out my daughter the other night had no idea how to cook or clean with clean cast iron. So we're gonna have to come to Jesus meeting with her.
So you told her to get dish soap and a sponge, right?
Oh my gosh! And
I use dish soap. I don't know what's wrong with everybody else, but I use it in my cast iron.
I posted this thing about guys, if you're single out there, get a woman who knows how to cook and cast iron and perk coffee in a percolator. And she commented, "I don't know how to do either of those things."
Oh no!
Oh, we're gonna have to do something. Yeah, we're definitely gonna have to do something about that. Well, hey. I appreciate you guys coming on here. When we get off here, you guys stick around. But for everybody else out there, I hope you have a wonderful week. And check out Ham Radio if you've never done before. It's really something that's going to be worth your while. We really hope you have a week. I'm a Brofesser, and these are my friends. And we are